Everybody can please take your seats. We'll get started. Thank you so much. My name is Chad Pilcher. I have the honor of serving as the president of the Red Mountain Grace Board of Directors. And on behalf of the board, I want to welcome you to Widespread Grace 2024. We are honored to have you here tonight as we celebrate our mission of gracious hospitality. Tonight would not be possible without our sponsors, without our dedicated staff, and without the service of our Young Professionals Board. I want to especially thank our presenting sponsor tonight, the Altec Steislinger Foundation. We also want to thank our Red Mountain Grace volunteers. Without you, our organization would not be what it is. Back in 2022, we started a new tradition of honoring a volunteer who truly embodies our mission of gracious hospitality. That award is named for Miss Debbie Tidwell, who was the first ever Red Mountain Grace employee and patient care coordinator. Debbie set the standard for how we care for patients and treat each one with a deep personal compassion, and we were honored to establish this award in her honor. This year, we're excited to recognize a volunteer who's gone above and beyond in many ways, whether it's leaving treats or gift cards for our guests, coordinating apartment cleanings, or even playing a game of cards with the guests. She always does so with a great smile and a willing heart. But her impact goes beyond that. She's enlisted her husband and her sons to help volunteer, which has created a family legacy of service. She's also championed our mission with her congregation at Red Mountain Church, which has inspired fellow church members to get involved with Red Mountain Grace. The church has hosted care team meetings, sponsored twin beds for a new apartment unit, and assisted us in opening new apartments, which has made each one feel like home. Through these efforts, she and her church have helped Red Mountain Grace go above and beyond in our mission to serve with gracious hospitality. Please join me in congratulating the 2024 Debbie Tidwell Service Award honoree, Miss Allison Dagnan. As Allison comes up, Allison, we are so grateful for the work that you do on behalf of Red Mountain Grace. You are a true reflection of Christ, just like Debbie is, and we're thankful for everything that you do for our organization, not only individually, but the way that you've inspired others to step up as well. Come on.
Y'all, I feel so just unworthy of this, honestly. I mean, there's so many people out here that do amazing work all the time. I'm fairly new to Red Mountain Grace. About a year and a half we've been working with Red Mountain Grace, but it's really blessed me so much more than I feel like I've been a blessing to anybody else. But I'm so glad to be a part of this wonderful organization. Thank you.
We've got a lot of exciting things on tap for tonight, and we thank you all for being here at this time. Please join me as we bless the meal. Dear Lord, we thank you. We gather here with grateful hearts, thanking you for your abundant grace. As we celebrate the impact of Red Mountain Grace over the past year, we ask that your presence be felt here in our midst. May our time together be filled with joy and inspiration, and may each conversation and interaction be uplifting. Please bless this meal and the fellowship we share, and guide us as we look forward to continue our mission of serving our families with renewed strength and purpose. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Please enjoy your meal and enjoy your evening.
Well, good evening, everyone. As the food is still being served, we're going to go ahead and get started with the program this evening. My name is Jason Simpson. I'm the chief meteorologist at WVTM here in Birmingham, and I am so happy to be here with you tonight. This is a fantastic event. It has been put on by some fantastic people for a really awesome purpose. You know, my office is next door, actually 2 doors down, but this view just beats anything that we have from even where I sit. So what a fantastic view that we've got out there tonight of the Magic City. But what we're gathered to do is to celebrate Red Mountain Grace's mission and the impact of gracious hospitality and raise the funds that are necessary to continue to serve families who will travel to Birmingham for cancer care, organ transplant, and many other medical emergencies. Get this, since 2013, Red Mountain Grace has welcomed 1,211 families through their apartments, providing over 50,000 nights of housing to families traveling to Birmingham for medical care. That's a savings in lodging expenses of an incredible $8 million for those families. I think that deserves a round of applause. I mean, that's an extreme load off, and you talk about the stress relief that comes from taking a burden off like that. Red Mountain Grace currently operates 20 apartments across the south side of Birmingham in close proximity to our city's medical district, providing a fully furnished apartment for just $20 a night. Fully furnished, $20 a night, all because people are willing to give of their time, to give of their talents, to give of their energy, and most of all, to give of their treasure. And that makes a huge difference in what's happening just down the bottom of the hill tonight with a lot of these families. To continue our program tonight, we're going to have a question and answer in just a few moments, but I want to tell you a little bit about some of my family's story while you're still eating and we're getting served. In 2015, I had a son that was born prematurely at Huntsville Hospital for Women and Children. He was transported here to Birmingham with a severe congenital heart defect along with many other birth defects. And we were here for 30 days at Children's of Alabama, away from our kids in Huntsville. We were a family of 5, so we did not qualify to have everybody come down and stay in Birmingham because we were having to stay at the Ronald McDonald House. Now, Ronald McDonald House does a fantastic job. They really do. But the Birmingham Baptist Association, through our affiliation formerly with Valleydale at that time, we had just moved from Valleydale Church up to Huntsville. We knew folks at Brook Hills. We knew folks at Hunter Street and Shades Mountain. They told us about this organization that had these apartments. And they didn't tell us the name, but they were just trying to work in the background to get that done for us. Well, it didn't work out because there was such a long waiting list and there was nothing available. So our family, I know, would have greatly benefited from the growth that Red Mountain Grace has experienced since 2015. And I wish that I could say that we had been one of the beneficiaries of it, but I can tell you after tonight and after what I'm learning tonight, our family will be giving back to a ministry like this. And we're going to be telling other people about this ministry and what is being done with Red Mountain Grace and with widespread grace tonight because it matters so much to families. Hospitality in a cold environment. I know hospitals, they do a great job trying to make people feel as comfortable as possible, but that's not the primary mission of a hospital. They're there to save the patient. They try to serve the family as best they can, but that's where we're called to do something about that in our community. People come from all around the state of Alabama. They come from around the entire Southeast right here to Birmingham for some of the finest medical care, not just in Alabama, but in the entire world. And it's our job to reach out to them and to make sure that we take care of them and give them the kind of love that they need to have an experience so that they can help take care of their family member that's in the hospital, that's dealing with a tragic event or a severe trauma or a heart defect or a newborn baby or whatever it may be. As I walked around outside the room here and looked at those posters, a lot of the same words kept coming up. And they all brought that picture of grace. And, you know, as a good Southern Baptist, I know that definition of grace is unmerited favor. Those people haven't done anything to deserve our help yet, but they may in the future. But that's not the point of it, is it? because that's not what grace is. Grace is us doing for them because it's the right thing to do. So I am honored to be here. And I want to thank Callie, who's on the board, Callie Priest. Callie invited me to be able to do this, and it's a big honor for me to be able to stand in front of you tonight, tell you a little bit about my story and what happened with us, and tell you how much I appreciate what you're doing for families who are going through things just like we went through, and you're serving them better than ever before because of what you're doing here tonight and because of the great work that you do outside this room. So to continue our program, I do want to welcome two people who can speak firsthand to the impact that gracious hospitality has had on families experiencing medical emergencies. Dr. Daniel Cox is an associate professor with UAB Medicine. He's the chief physician for the trauma service and trauma medical director. He joined UAB in 2018 and completed his medical training at UAB before beginning military service in the Air Force in 2012. And Michael Hood, he lives in Auburn, Alabama with his wife, Tammy. He works at the university and is a father of two. Michael and his wife were Red Mountain Grace guests earlier this year while their son, Matthew, was recovering from a car accident. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Cox and Mr. Hood to the stage. Come on up. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Promise not to grill you too hard. I think you're going to know the answers to the questions for sure here. So in talking about holistic hospitality from a healthcare provider and a caregiver's perspective, Michael, can you tell us just a little bit about your experience with Red Mountain Grace and what led you to needing housing from them?
Okay. Yep, so our story started on December 29th, 2023 with Matthew being involved in an accident. He was coming home, he was on 280 and turned off on the North College right there. And not too far down the road, another car was coming at him head on, and so he goes off the road trying to avoid the head-on collision. And they miss, but as he gets the big truck that he was driving back on the road, it kind of shoots to the other side, and he pulls it to get back in his lane. And when he does, it fishtails, and it just slides off the road and hits into a tree, and the tree hits the A-pillar right in front of the cab, and so he's now trapped in the truck. And I remember him saying whenever he got his bearings again, he looked up and saw smoke coming up and saw the flames. So he knew he needed to get out. And he's been in the volunteer fire department with Notasulga for a year and a half up to the point of this accident. So he knew this was bad. You're going to have to get out of the vehicle. And this was late at night. And he started trying to find his phone, and he couldn't get himself out. And he said when he started trying to pull out, he could tell that his right leg seemed like it was stretching. And so he wound up having multiple compound fractures on that side and started hollering for help. And in just a little bit, the first miracle that occurred, a woman stopped. She came up on the accident right after it happened and told him she had help on the way. And, of course, now the truck's on fire, and he's doing the best that he can to try to keep himself calm and keep the flames out off of him as best as possible. The next miracle is Auburn just built another station, Station 6, over in Farmville, not too far from where this accident happened. And so they were able to respond really quickly. And when they got there, the chief told me, said, we had seconds, not minutes. And Matthew was doing everything he could to stay out of the flames, but it was fully involved. And he wound up with 45 to 50% lower body, third and fourth degree burns. So the next miracle, number 3, was the chief said, we actually got some new equipment on the truck not too long before this happened that was very instrumental in getting the situation under control and getting him out. And, of course, as they get Matthew out, he's kind of like working the scene. He's telling Clay, the gentleman that pulled him out, hey, you need to be doing this. You need to get this. You need to be getting life flight lined up. You know, it's like he's working the scene. Oh, gosh. And they get him over to the side of the road there, and they were asking him questions about what was going on, what had happened. He was very calm, told them all what had happened. And then in a little bit, he said, hey, can y'all put some more water on me? And they did. He said, boy, that feels good. And of course, it's getting late. His mom and I, we're worried because he's run late. He hasn't sent a note or anything, a text, and let us know what was going on. And so we're scheming on how we're going to ground him. And I'm getting worried. It's like just not like him. And he has gone off on a few calls with the fire department and not let us know, at times. But this I knew wasn't the situation. I didn't think. So anyway. That rascal. Oh, man. So it's late, and I'm in the living room. I got the front door open. I got all the front lights on, just like waiting for him to come home. I never go to bed without him being back in the house. And my phone's getting about dead, and I go put it on charge. I lay back on the sofa, and I hadn't been on that sofa 2 minutes. There was a tap on the door. I looked, and it was 2 Auburn police officers. And I looked over, and I was like, oh, gosh, what are they about to tell me? And as I went around the end of the sofa, I said to myself, I hope they're here to tell me he's been stealing street signs or something. Oh, man. And so these 2 officers, they worked the scene and began to tell me what all was going on. And while I was trying to find the information to give them, the sergeant, he went back on the front porch, and he was calling the EMT and the ambulance checking on Matthew. He came back in the house and said, sir, you got just a second, keep it brief. You can talk to him. And as soon as the EMT was told that I was on the phone, Matthew just piped up and said, hey, Dad, I'm okay. They're taking care of me. Love you. I said, love you too. Hang in there. And that was it. And the officers, I could tell that they were really concerned, and I didn't think about it later, but they had worked the scene. They knew what was going on. They knew they were transporting by ambulance. Lifeline couldn't handle the situation because they had a no-fly situation. There was ice crystals at altitude in the clouds. So, that's another thing there. They're going to have to drive all the way. They can't fly him. So they were concerned, what kind of call they were going to get with him and his condition, because they saw what he looked like, and they knew the severity of the injury. And so, we told him, so look, we can't go tonight. My wife, she has multiple sclerosis, so she doesn't go very far, very well. And so we were going to have to figure out how to make this work. So the next day, matter of fact, Matthew's principal at school knew Austin somehow, way or another, and that's how we got in contact with each other. Yeah. And so we spent 77 days with Red Mountain Grace and see what Matthew went through. Because even after during the first 2 weeks, there was no one's going to give us a guarantee he was going to make it. But it worked out, and he pulled through, and they were just amazed at how tough he was. And March 20th, we made it back home.
Wow. That's an incredible story. So just a quick follow-up to that. The idea of having to foot the bill for everything yourself, for lodging here, for food, that's a tough thing to even think about. What does it mean to you that you didn't have to do that? That these people were here for you?
Oh, it's huge. It really is, because expenses is one thing you're not worried about at the time, but it's something you got to deal with, okay? And how are you going to make this work? And it was just amazing that everything just started falling into place. And God answers prayers before you even know what to pray for sometimes. And that was one of our answered prayers, was being able to have this situation that you guys have with Red Mountain Grace.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing to be able to just relax in that aspect of it, at least. And Dr. Cox, you don't get to relax very much. As a trauma surgeon, you see a lot of patients who require extended medical care. Can you share your perspective on the challenges that these patients face?
Yeah, and I don't think I can tell it as well as Michael, but what he captured there is nobody starts their day thinking, I'm going to be a trauma patient in Birmingham, right? So that unknown aspect of it, of your world completely, right, just being rocked, and that stressor on the family, the patients are coming in. Usually, we often have young, healthy people that it's the worst day of their life, right? And they have these very challenging injuries. And so the thing is, it's you can't prepare for it, right? You can't mentally prepare for it. And there's so much unknown when patients first come in, right? So we're constantly, from the minute they hit the hospital, we're gathering information, we're discovering injuries, we're addressing those injuries, but there's so much unknown, right, when they come in and what that course is going to look like in terms of their recovery. So you can imagine that stressor, right, of, families hearing that information, all this coming out of the blue from a normal day to that. And then they're faced with, okay, what does the future look like, right? Is this going to be 5 days in the hospital and we're back to normal? Is this going to be 70 plus days in a whole new future? So I think, for people that are experiencing this, they're often the sickest patients in the hospital. There's no preparation that you can do to say, hey, I'm going to schedule my surgery, 2 weeks from now when I elect to wreck my car and, have this horrific accident happen, right? That's not how it plays out. And so it's just an amazingly stressful time for the patients, the families, as they're encountering this.
So how does Red Mountain Grace's mission of gracious hospitality affect the overall well-being or the healing process of the patients?
So I think, the biggest thing to me is for the families being able to be there in the normalcy that you get, at least of having family members there, right? You're in a whole new environment, often in an ICU setting, all these things are happening, and you at least have that comfort of family members are close, they're available to, they're not 2 hours away because they can't, afford to stay in Birmingham, they can't afford to stay, at a hotel. They can be there every day, they can be there supporting as you're going through this, very challenging thing as a patient.
So, Michael, how did Red Mountain Grace's model help you with this whole recovery process?
Very instrumental, because first part was us being here close by. And one of the things at UAB that I've noticed and see around is that, that one family member that's able to be there with that patient, that's kind of like the care partner. And one of the trauma nurses said that, it really does help having a family member here with your loved one while they're going through all this, because sometimes, we see someone comes through and we think, oh, they're going to be fine, but they don't have anybody around. There's nothing, and things go south. But yet then you take someone that has a very complex medical situation, very traumatic, but yet they have all the support around them. They have all their loved ones. They're close by, and it does help them pull through. I've seen it,
Right, and you also had the comforts of home there too, right?
Exactly, yeah, and we needed that. I mean, for one, you can't go back and forth to Auburn every day. That's crazy. And then being able to take care of Tammy, because, her MS has progressed to the point where you have to help her eat, you have to help her drink, bathing, brush teeth, the whole 9 yards. And so it's tough on her. It's not how she wants to be. But us having the apartment close by, we were able to go back and forth to the hospital. And, it felt like I was just dragging her back and forth at times, but she wanted to be there too. That was her baby. Matthew is our baby, and you want to be there and do anything you can for them. And one of the things, of course, having severe burns and the recovery was, like Dr. Wong says, protein. And we had the kitchen right there too, so I could actually cook meals and take to Matthew. Of course, there's the cafeteria downstairs, and they have some pretty good food.
Everybody loves hospital food.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that you wanted to bring something
Nothing's
else
good as Mama's cooking, though, right?
That's exactly right. And then there's also up here with the other churches, local churches, and people that we got to know through the burn support group. They brought food too, and so we had a refrigerator, we had a freezer, we could put food in there and ration it out. We all had meals. We never went without a meal, which was awesome. And Matthew gets tired of something at the hospital, which of course he said, "No, the chicken and dumplings is awesome. He'll take that any day." That was the one thing. Yeah. But yeah, that was awesome. It really helped us tremendously.
Well, and Michael, Red Mountain Grace's mission is to provide gracious hospitality. That's the mission statement, essentially. Sometimes it's hard to convey that with words. So having been a Red Mountain Grace guest, what does gracious hospitality mean to you? How would you put that into words?
It's the people. They treat you like family. And that was just amazing how Austin and all of the people that volunteer work with him, and even Lindsay. I don't know if Lindsay's here tonight, but just optimism. There you are. There you go. Awesome. Yep. They're great. I mean, they just want to know what you need. What can we do to help you? And anything that you're worried about, if they can do something about it, they're gonna do their best to take care of it. So I mean, and this is something that's crazy. It doesn't take much to entertain me, but here's the thing too: hospitality and hospital. You take the 3 letters off of hospitality, you got hospital. So taking care of people just like down the road here. So I enjoyed that.
And it should say well-rounded experience when you're dealing with that. Doctor, this is a question for both of you. I'll start with Dr. Cox. Why is it important for the community to support organizations like Red Mountain Grace?
So, one of the things to put in context of, what we face in the state, right? So very limited resources. So I'm a trauma surgeon, so everything I'm focused on is trauma, right? And trauma requires a system to deliver optimal care. We see 35% of all trauma patients in the state come to this one building, which just speaks to there's very limited resources in the state, which leads to lots of people having to travel a long way to get to the care that they need. And that's where, again, all those stressors that we talked about, the importance of having something like this. We're very proud of the care that we deliver, but we understand it's also a big stressor. It'd be ideal to have your home, 5 minutes away from the hospital, and that's just not a reality in our state. So for our community to be able to support, people when they're going through that is really important.
All right, so Michael, same thing. Why would you look out to anybody that was not like anybody in this room hadn't made up their mind already, but to somebody who maybe you can help put it in words that they can convince someone else what makes that difference and why they need to support it?
I tell you, Chick-fil-A has a great training video type thing that I watched one time, training my guys about some customer service. And everybody that walks up to a counter, they got their own story going on. They have, there's something going on in their life that's major or whatever, and they're just coming through trying to get something to eat, and they need the best experience that there is. We're trying to give them some kind of comfort in some type of way, but understand that, hey, they all have lives, right? Okay, they're going through things. They may be going through a divorce. They may have a child that just passed away, or a loved one, or situation. A child was in a car wreck. You just don't know what other people are going through. And Matthew's room was right there in the TCIB ICU, 9510. And while we were there constantly, when the weather was good, there was a constant throughout the day. There was a helicopter coming through. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, there's another story right there. There's another family that's affected. They're flying them here. They weren't down the street. They were somewhere far off. And matter of fact, we met people from all over the state and even some of the surrounding states too while we were there.
Yeah, you're not going to find much better medical care than we have right here in Birmingham, especially at UAB. And Dr. Cox, thank you for your work at UAB and the care that you provide and those in medical crisis. And Michael, thank you for sharing your family's story and just telling us from your heart how the gracious hospitality provided by Red Mountain Grace has made a difference in you and your community. So appreciate you, gentlemen. We'll let you go back and finish your dinner at this point. I know I pulled you away from it right as you got started. Thank you very much. I'll tell you what, if you came here tonight and you didn't know a whole lot about Red Mountain Grace, you kind of get a feel for exactly what's going on just after listening to these two gentlemen. And right now, I'd like to take a second to introduce Blake Hamby. Blake is a senior vice president at Lockton Companies, and more importantly, he's married to Erin, and they have 2 daughters. I felt that statement. I know exactly how that feels. Just in this room tonight, I've been asked about my wife multiple times. Why is she not here? She's the important one. Absolutely. Good on you, Blake, for that. Last year, Blake took the time to write a book on his family's story when in 2011, he and Erin were told that their daughter had a 0% chance to live. I'll let Blake come back and tell you a little bit more about that story. So y'all welcome Mr. Blake Hamby.
Jason, thanks for that plug. I think that'll do me well later about Erin. I'm pulling out my phone not to keep up with like the Jets-Pats score, but to actually make sure that I don't go over time. So, but thank y'all for allowing me to be here, Austin and the team. Really appreciate this opportunity, to the board, the junior board, and all the volunteers. It really is an honor to be able to stand up here and just take just a couple of moments and tell you a little bit about kind of our unexpected medical journey that happened about 12 years ago. As I was coming in, I saw several people that I know, which kind of freaked me out. I was like, I thought this was going to be all strangers, but now I know people, and if I mess up or fall down or wet my pants or something, then they all know about it. But my name is Blake Hamby. For those of you that I don't know, my wife Erin, Jason mentioned her. Our two beautiful daughters, Rebecca and Faith, are here with us, and we live just right down the hill in Homewood. And so just a quick overview of our medical story. About 12 years ago, Erin was pregnant with our second daughter, and the pregnancy just started out rough from the start, bleeding and just all kinds of things. At 22 weeks, she had a placenta abruption, which meant the placenta attached from the uterine wall, which I asked the logical question, can't you just sew it back together? But apparently that's not how that works. And so then she was on bed rest for about 3 weeks. We spent Christmas down at St. Vincent's in room 307. And then our baby, Faith, was born 25 weeks and 2 days, weighed 1 pound, 14 ounces. And that thrust us into a whole other journey of 4.5 months in the NICU down here at St. Vincent's, and then most of the time at UAB. So I've been thinking about, praying about kind of just what to share for several months, practicing it, and I was actually practicing this with my wife, Erin, last night for kind of last time, and after I got finished, she said, that's really kind of lame. It's it feels like you're just kind of reciting a bunch of medical timeline. And I said, well, that's great. I got to go talk tomorrow. But I said, what advice would you give me? And she said, well, what do you remember? Like, think back to those 12 years ago, and really, when you think about that, what comes to your mind? Like, maybe that's a story you could tell. And so I picked up my ego and dragged an ever-increasing level of anxiety to my den and kind of sat down and just started making some notes. And some of the things that, quite honestly, just from a very honest place, came to my mind was the first night we were admitted into the hospital. I was so confused, so scared that I was going to lose my wife and baby, and all I wanted was a hug from my mom and dad, who were here as well. And I remember them driving to see us, give us a hug, and just how much that meant. I remember the next morning, a good friend of mine, Tanner, showed up with a cup of Starbucks at the hospital just to see how we're doing, just to check on us. And he would do that over that going forward of 5.5 months that we were in different hospitals. And I remember my sister and her husband, who are both medical professionals at UAB, showing up to give us kind of some medical advice and guidance, but more importantly, she just gave me her presence just by being there. I remember setting up camp in Erin's room at 307 down in St. Vincent's, because I worked a mile away, and I lived 2 miles away, and I could do that, and I could still see Rebecca, our oldest, and I could still be with Erin, because I just, honestly, I didn't know she was going to make it, and I didn't want to leave her side, and it was just incredible. I remember how it was over Christmas, and so a steady stream of friends and family just would show up at the hospital. They turned our room into literally like this Christmas wonderland. We had a Christmas tree and presents and artwork on the wall, and it meant so much to kind of have that room turned into a home. I definitely remember a lady named Gloria who came in. Officially, her job was to clean our room. Unofficially, and her real job was to just sweep out all the stuff that a broom would never touch, like anxiety and fear and all the things, because she came in with a smile, a song in her heart. She prayed with us, and it literally became the best part of our day. I kind of contrast that with the world-renowned neonatologist. Many of you probably know Dr. Wally Carlo in this room, and he literally had a sticky note on his computer with my daughter's name and many others, because he wanted to remember to pray for her, and that meant the world. It's fall in Alabama, and I definitely remember Alabama and LSU national championship and watching that in the hospital room, and our friends coming in and kind of turning it into a little bit of a tailgate. I'm not sure if you're supposed to have beer in a hospital room, but we're probably over the statute of limitations on that. And as Faith was born, I remember the ability that I had to go before work, at lunch, and after work, just to go see her. and just what that meant to Aaron and I, and still be able to be home with Rebecca, and it provided a sense of continuity that we just had to have. When I get real emotional, I think about the day that I went at lunch to go see Faith, and she stops breathing and starts to turn blue, and I'm literally watching thinking that she's going to die right in front of me, and I just go run and try to find somebody to help, and they help her, and they do, just an awesome job. And I remember thinking as I'm leaving, just feeling guilty about how can I ever leave her again? How can I not be here? And the anxiety of thinking, the medical care is great, but we got to be there just to watch and make sure she's okay. I remember when they called and told us there's honestly nothing else we can do for your baby, how this wasn't part of what I practiced. But how, all I wanted to do, honestly, was go for a walk with my mom, and then I wanted to immediately go see Faith, and I could do both of those because we lived together. And lastly, I remember just how much it meant to be able to go and kiss both of my girls and pray over them before I went to bed each night while one was in the hospital, and one was at our house over in Homewood. And it just provided the sense of continuity that we just had to have as a family. And when I thought about Red Mountain Grace, and what they're doing, they're in the business of providing temporary affordable housing. That's not really exciting. But they're really in the business of doing all the things that I experienced, and I didn't even get to be in their care, but that's what this is really about. And it's about creating a home when your home is kind of not there with you. So I'm going to end doing good on my time from when I practiced. But I want to end just by reading a quick little story. It won't take but a minute, but it's from this book. It is the book we wrote. It's written from the perspective of a preemie baby. And kind of the context is that we kind of gave voice to Faith when she didn't have a voice. And she's talking about the night before when her mom got to hold her for the first time, and she's been alive for a month at this point, and Aaron hadn't been able to hold Faith yet. But the title of the chapter is called Home, and I just thought it was a good way to maybe kind of end what I think about when I think about Red Mountain Grace, because they really are in the business of creating a home, and I think in a lot of ways kind of how this reads. So if you'll bear with me, I'll read some of this. But so sometimes they say home is where you hang your hat, or home is where your heart is. While both things may be true, I'm not sure either goes deep enough to the true point of where your true home is. Right now, for me, my true home is with my mommy in her tummy. But I can't be there. I guess sometimes the place you have to live is not the home you had hoped for. Ever since I've been out in this big, bright world, I haven't been able to go where I belong. But when I got there to go there tonight, I can't even tell you how happy it made me. I'd forgotten how much I missed it, how much I needed it, until I was there. Home for me is my mommy. I got to lie on her chest and feel her warm skin and the vibrations when she spoke. But maybe my favorite thing is that I got to listen to the very familiar sound of her heartbeat. In her arms, I was home, and I never wanted to leave that safe and wonderful place. All this talk of home got me thinking about how there are probably a lot of us who live somewhere that we never thought we would call home. Maybe you're like me, and the home that you thought was perfectly made for you is whisked away, and now you are fighting to survive in a place that seems so strange and scary and lonely that you find it hard to breathe sometimes. And you even sometimes feel like your heart stops beating. I had a home that was so nice and warm and protected, a place that was literally built by God himself. And then one day, out of the blue, that home was taken from me, and now I find myself in a place that is cold and lonely, and sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating, and other times my heart literally stops beating. If I'm being honest, I find it all very scary, confusing, and just plain unfair. All I want to do is be back with my family, tucked safely in my mommy's tummy, but that seems so far away, it's hard to see from here. But when I feel like I can't go on anymore, I think about something my daddy told me during one of his late night visits. He was talking in his praying voice, and I could feel something different and new and alive wrapping around me. It was like home was coming to me. Even though home seemed to be so far away, he said something about Jesus living in an unfamiliar land. He talked about how Jesus left a home that was perfect and arrived here in this world in a scary situation just like I did. Daddy talked about how Jesus' future probably seemed uncertain. Then Daddy ended the prayer by saying that Jesus endured his struggles because of a hope that was set before him. Now, I don't know a lot about this world or Jesus, or really much of anything when I think about it. But I felt something when Daddy talked about hope. It was like Jesus and Daddy were building a home around me. It felt so strange and familiar at the same time. I knew I was not in the home I was supposed to be in, but I also felt that Jesus wasn't concerned about that, and he was going to make a home for me right where I was. Times still get hard, but when they do, I try to think about that hope Daddy talked about in that home Jesus is making for me. So as I snuggle my tiny self into my bed sheets tonight, I'm going to picture me and you and Jesus sitting by a nice warm fire, our toes covered in a warm blanket, and drinking hot chocolate while we talk and laugh and play games. And who knows, maybe that was the hope that helped Jesus overcome his hard days. There's like a 20% chance I was going to get through that without crying. So, but anyway, as I close tonight, as I thought about that, and I thought about Red Mountain Grace and Austin, what you and the team and others do, it's really that. It's creating a home when people are going through their hardest times. It's said recently tonight that right down there we've got some of the best medical care, honestly, for sure the country and probably the world has. And we're blessed because of that. And I think with great blessing comes great responsibility. I didn't have to suffer through what Michael and his family did because I live 2 minutes down the road from here. And I just think it just matters so much. I mean, medical care is almost a given in a town like Birmingham. Good medical care, great medical care. But what's not a given is just that care for our souls, that care for our emotions. And I think Red Mountain Grace does a great job of stepping into the worst times that people can have and kind of helping them not feel so lost, not feel so alone, and kind of felt seen. So thank you all for letting me. Austin, thank you. I did ask my wife to give me a glass of wine when I finish, so I'm going to go have that now. Thank you all.
Blake, thanks for sharing your family's story. Thank you all for sharing your Thursday evening with us. For the next few minutes, I want to ask us 3 questions. The first is, why are you here tonight? Not in an existential way, but some of you have been connected to Red Mountain Grace since the beginning. Others are past guests. A handful of you are monthly donors, apartment adopters, and some of you are hearing about the best kept secret in Birmingham for the first time tonight. But we're all here tonight because someone invited us to see how gracious hospitality is transforming the lives of families in the middle of medical crisis. With just a glance out that window that's already been referenced tonight, you'll see that the south side of Birmingham is one of the best places for medical care in the country. I think that we often take that for granted. I think we often take for granted just what great medical care we have access to in our backyard. There's Children's Hospital. It's the only health system of its kind in the state. And there's UAB. It's the 8th largest hospital in the country. It's the only level 1 trauma hospital in the state of Alabama. The O'Neill Comprehensive Cancer Center is the only NCI designated comprehensive cancer center in the state, and it's also the only one in a surrounding 4-state region. Then we have the Comprehensive Transplant Institute. It performs over 400 heart, liver, lung, kidney, and uterus transplants every year. And it serves patients from over 44 different states. I could continue with the accolades and praise for UAB the rest of the night, but I also haven't included other health systems in town like Grandview or the VA, which is where patients are receiving care that we house as well. The second question I have for you is, what would it look like for Birmingham to be known as a city where you could not only receive world-class medical care, but that we are also known around the country for our gracious hospitality? What if people just knew that every family traveling to Birmingham for a medical crisis, that they were going to receive care for their body and their soul? From Albertville to Andalusia, Albuquerque to Atlanta. I often receive inquiries from friends, and some of you here in this room, asking for something like Red Mountain Grace in other cities, cities like Seattle, San Diego, Indianapolis, Philadelphia, and Boston. There's others. But the truth is that our model is unique, and it not only meets the need of safe, clean, and affordable housing, but also meets the need for holistic care and community. What if every application that we received to stay with Red Mountain Grace and met our requirements was just a green light for housing? In 2023, we had a record year and served 171 families. That's the most ever. It's an increase by 20% from 2022. And that was in large part due to the financial support of our givers. Also in 2023, it was a banner year for guests that were unserved. So while we served 171 families, we received 232 applications of people that we did not house for one of many reasons. Either they were discharged from the hospital, they found other housing, or they passed away. And we continue to operate with a waiting list, just like Jason said. This is what keeps me up at night. The truth is, we need help closing that gap between families who need housing and families we can serve. If Birmingham's to be known for gracious hospitality, I want to share a few examples that demonstrate with you the compassion, care, and empathy that we strive for. Earlier this year, we had a guest who delivered her son prematurely. She had some challenging circumstances, and because of the speed at which she was driven up in ambulance from South Alabama, she came to us without any shoes on. And because she had been out of work, she didn't have an active bank account or much community to support her. Erica, who's a volunteer and an apartment adopter and actually here tonight, she stepped in because this young lady was staying in her apartment. And she was quick to provide her meals, rally her small group, and assist in transportation for this guest. RMG also was able to assist in purchasing bus passes so that she could go to the hospital every day and see her son. We stored breast milk in our freezer. There were other nonprofits that we connected with as well and partnered with, like Holcomb Ministries, to provide additional resources for a new mom. This is a true picture of what community and working together to provide hospitality looks like. Earlier this summer, our friends at the Hunter Street Baptist Church youth group decided to select Red Mountain Grace for a service project. That's a picture of my car. It's dirty, but it's a large SUV. And they filled my car with cleaning supplies. We have enough Lysol, Windex, cleaning supplies, and wipes so that we don't have to buy cleaning supplies to prepare apartments for the next year. And I think this is an amazing testament of what happens to the power of youth and when people rally behind a same cause. If you didn't take a chance to stop by and see some of the other stories that we highlighted of gracious hospitality tonight, I would charge you to do so on your way out. There's one story I want to highlight. Man, y'all didn't come here to see a bunch of grown men cry tonight. There's one story I want to highlight that's the pinnacle of gracious hospitality. Last year, my friend Brad Martin was on this exact stage sharing about his previous stay with Red Mountain Grace. Brad stayed with us because his son, Chase, at 14 years old, received a double lung and heart transplant. Brad's also a rare two-time guest at Red Mountain Grace because he was later diagnosed with cancer and stayed with us while he was receiving cancer treatment. Shortly after widespread grace, his cancer returned. And through our friendship and the many meals we shared at Johnny's and many conversations, I knew that Christmas was his favorite season. And one day when I was visiting him in the hospital, I made two jokes. The first was that next time I come, I'm going to give you a pedicure. You need that. I've never done that in my life. But the other was that I would bring some carolers with me. So when I left his room later that afternoon, his wife Jessica pulled me aside, and she said, if you could actually make that happen, that would be very meaningful. You see, Brad's health was failing. Less than 48 hours later, with Red Mountain Grace staff, volunteers, many of you here in the room, in the UAB music therapy room, we barged up to his fifth floor room and were belting carols at the top of our lungs, experiencing gracious hospitality to the fullest. And Brad passed away just a few hours later. Kleenex needs to be a sponsor next year. These are just three of countless examples of gracious hospitality and how the community of Red Mountain Grace, right? What I love most about Red Mountain Grace is it's not just the 4 staff members and the 8 board members. It's countless volunteers, it's apartment adopters, it's church partners. These are just 3 stories of how we've loved our neighbors. But we can't do it alone, which leads me to my third question. And it's, what role are you willing to play in gracious hospitality? Maybe that's becoming an apartment adopter through your business or your church. On average, each apartment serves 8 families per year. If you're a monthly donor, would you consider increasing your monthly gift? Tonight, if everyone in this room gave $30 a month for the next year, we could open 4 more apartments and serve 30 more families with gracious hospitality. Would you volunteer with us? Join us at a check-in and witness the relief and renewal that cascades across our guests' faces when they walk into our apartments. Maybe would you clean a toilet or drop off a meal? Or most impactful of all, would you just sit with a neighbor? Also, would you pray? At everybody's seat is a name of a guest that we've served over the past year, 115 guests in all. That's Kimberlyn from Mobile and Robin from Station, Genesis from Vernon. It's a picture of Aubriana. Her family is a current guest of ours right now, and she received a new heart yesterday. Would you pray with her? Pray for her and her healing and her family. Pray for our guests' healing. Pray for their caregivers and their stamina, the physicians, the nurses, and pray for more hands to multiply gracious hospitality. Again, what would it look like if every person traveling to Birmingham for medical care could experience gracious hospitality? And lastly, who will you invite in to join this charge? Who do you know that needs to be a part of this vision? Is that someone connected to the multifamily world and work? Is that a medical provider? Is that a local church small group or even a book club? Our goal with Widespread Grace is to raise $150,000 to ensure that families experience gracious hospitality. Through our sponsors and other gifts, we've already raised $100,000 for this event. On your table is a giving card like this. And it has a couple different things. It has a place to indicate if you're interested in any of those areas that I talked about. If you want more information, we'd love to follow up with you. If you'll please take a second to fill this out. If you want to make a meaningful gift via check, you can do that and put it in the envelope at your table. If you want to make a gift via credit card, you can scan the QR code here or on the stage as well. Again, the funds that we're raising are necessary to welcome future guests through our apartments. Our guests stay for only $20 a night, and alternatives like a hotel room can be upwards of $200 a night, or other alternatives are sleep in your car or the waiting room. It costs Red Mountain Grace $150 a night to house a family in a fully furnished apartment. That difference between the rent that they pay and what it costs us is funded by our apartment adopters and donors like you. While you consider what role you want to play in gracious hospitality, I'd ask that you turn your attention to the screen for a quick message from some of our guests, volunteers, apartment adopters, and staff.
This note is from Olivia, and I can go ahead and read it.
Sure. I'm not sure how it will work with my eyes and the writing, but we'll see. My family and I are so thankful to RMG.
The one thing I stress to everyone about Red Mountain Grace is that this apartment is our safe haven.
The emotional weight on our family was immense, and the relief from the financial strain of securing a temporary home in Birmingham was truly a blessing.
Our daughter was in a severe car accident. We had a hotel room right next to the hospital, which wasn't cheap. and had to send our kids and family home. I knew everybody wanted to be here, but we couldn't have everybody in hotels. We needed to figure something else out, and we really didn't know what we were going to do. That sounds familiar. None of us had ever heard of Red Mountain Grace, but someone I went to college with and did an internship with Red Mountain and gave us the information, and within 24 hours, Lindsay called us, and then the rest was history.
It's just a unique way that maybe isn't always thought of, but then once these families, think of Red Mountain Grace and experience Red Mountain Grace, they're at the point where they're telling other families in their community, and we're getting to serve, friends of families from their same little small town. So
I think most of the people that are involved in with Red Mountain are going to be people who are probably at the lowest point of their life or pretty close to it. And, that support network and that safety net is just unbelievably necessary at that time. And I wonder, without Red Mountain Grace, what it would have looked like for us, really.
We spent 32 days at Children's Hospital in the NICU, sleeping at the hospital and watching our daughter go through a difficult situation. As parents, we like to think we can fix things all the time and take care of our kids, but when you're in this type of situation, you can't. So we've been through it.
As a healthcare administrator, we're not just wanting the patient to be healed medically. And when you are able to have a positive environment and family support, you see patients who are able to heal quicker. We see so many of the volunteers come alongside the families and truly spur on their recovery.
We'd been the only ones in a hospital room when somebody had their baby pass away, We were the only ones there to hold them and pray for them. The fact that we can do that for a number of patients is humbling.
yeah, this one's from Amber. We cannot thank everyone enough for their help during this time. All of the Red Mountain Grace staff was amazing, especially Lindsay. Many thanks, Amber. I think the word that comes to my mind is honor. Just that they share what they do with us in their pretty much lowest time of their life, or of their, many of the different moments throughout their life. My main goal is just to let them know that they're thought of.
For the last 4.5 months, we've been guests of this fantastic organization. They must get hundreds of applications from people. But to feel special from the beginning is just unbelievable.
Every card is not just one person, it's a family, and then it's community. But at the same time, to know that because of what Red Mountain Grace did for us, and is doing for all these other people, I don't know if joy's the right word, but it does kind of makes you feel good.
The families that we work with are coming from hundreds and miles away or different states. So I love being able to provide those resources for people that are in need, and just to be able to help brighten somebody's day or help people who are going through difficult times.
I really thought it would be a great way to be an example to my kids and show them, let's go do it, and don't be afraid.
I just love that it's a place where these families can come to rest and feel a sense of normalcy outside of the hospital walls. What a gift to be able to participate in that.
And it's something that my family and I are like, we're going to keep being a part of.
I used to always talk about, where we want to give money to, how are we going to help, what are we going to do? And that conversation never even happens anymore, because we know exactly what we're going to do. And it's what we're going to do until the end of time. And it's going to be our mission to do whatever we can to help them as much as we will never be able to repay them. But we want to do whatever we can to help them as much as they helped us.
Those are notes.
So my wife and I cannot truly express our gratitude to Red Mountain Grace and all the donors. Had this ministry not interceded for us, I don't know how we would have been able to provide the opportunity for my daughter to have access to the treatment she needed to get through this situation. Red Mountain is a lifeline from God that was given to my daughter and gave us the chance to not only recover, but also to have the opportunity to get her life back. A life that her disease was trying to steal from her. And us as a family. You don't remember, all the stuff you write in these moments. This ministry does not just give shelter and help. It gives hope. In our case, the chance of life. You have helped give my girl a chance to have life. A life that has hopes and dreams and endless possibilities. And for this, we are forever in your debt. And we will always support this ministry going forward.
You kind of always walk through this world and you pray and you hope that the good comes out in everything, because there's so much negative in the world and there's just so much sorrow. It's really difficult to find the good in things because people want to try to bring you down, and it just, sometimes you feel like you're drowning. But when you get introduced to the people that we got introduced to, in the situation that we were in, they made us realize that we were going to be okay. And we are. Red Mountain Grace is it's more than an apartment. It's a family.
More than an apartment. Red Mountain Grace is building a community that no one anticipates needing. Through generosity, compassion, empathy, we're not just a physical place of respite, but we have volunteers and staff that encourage our guests through meals, welcome baskets, birthday presents, and prayer. The answer to the question of why are we all here tonight is because we've all been impacted by the power of hospitality and community. We all have the ability to give of ourselves and to serve others. Josh Harden, who you saw in the video, is not just a past guest of Red Mountain Grace. He and Meg are now monthly donors, and earlier this week he gave of his time to clean and prepare an apartment where a guest will receive, this guest will call it home while he receives cancer treatment right now. A past guest welcoming the next guest. Before we end our time, I want to share a couple words of gratitude and some instruction. I want to thank the Red Mountain Grace team. Lindsay, you embody gracious hospitality and are the driving force and care for our guests. Liz, thank you for your help in communicating the message of Red Mountain Grace to our audiences. Natalie, thank you for helping put this event together and keeping RMG flowing smoothly. And Michael, thank you for jumping in and your willingness to handle any task. Red Mountain Grace operates off the generosity of our partners, to our volunteers who give of your time to help prepare apartments, welcome guests, assist with clean linens, pray for guests, decorate tables. Thank you. To our monthly donors and apartment adopters, you provide the necessary dollars that allow us to continue serving guests. And tonight, to our sponsors, thank you for making this event possible and helping us welcome future guests with gracious hospitality. A few items before we go. As you leave, if you'll feel free to take a copy of Blake's book, 0% Chance. I know he shared some highlights, or Aaron encouraged him not to share direct highlights. But it's a story that's similar to several guests that we're serving right now. So if you'll pick one up on your way. If you like to plan ahead like me, I'm going to hit you with a save the date for Widespread Grace 2025. So go ahead and mark your calendars for Thursday, October 2nd, and we'll be right back here in this room. I would love to see you. Also, again, with your giving card, if you take some time to think about that and make a meaningful gift and figure out what role do you want to play in gracious hospitality alongside Red Mountain Grace. When you're finished with that, if you'll stuff it in the envelope and put them all at the one large red envelope at your table, we'll have someone come by and collect those. At each table, there's one chair with a ribbon tied to the bottom. You're tonight's lucky winner, and you can take the flower arrangement home with you if you would like. And lastly, if you have any questions about anything that you've heard tonight, I would be honored to talk to you and to hear your questions, your concerns, and your thoughts, or find anyone with a Red Mountain Grace name tag. Thank you for sharing your evening with us, and good night.